Now let's look at a more interesting example. Here's an example of using the immediate reaction to a click for pick flipping, I should say. And what is that? Well, it's this right here. Now, you've seen this in a previous video. I can click my way through this all the way through, right, around and around and around. And watch what happens down here as I click. That goes to Mars, that goes to Jupiter, it goes to Saturn, it goes to the Moon, Mars. All right, so you notice that this is keeping pace with what I do here. Even more interesting, if I click here, I can jump straight to Jupiter. There, go to Saturn. Here, jump straight over to Mars, to Jupiter, to the Moon. So now I have two ways of displaying these pictures, and this technique can be used with text and fields and everything else. I mean, pictures are kind of interesting, but realize that what we're doing here you can do in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different contexts. You could be changing text, you could be doing all kinds of things. So how do we do this? What does it look like? Well, for our HTML, here we have the figure that has the picture, and here we have the buttons. And you notice that I've put the buttons in um, in a UL list, in an unordered list. And if you look at that, you might say, well, yeah, but I don't see stuff showing up here. I don't see little boxes or bullets or something else showing up. That's because we styled it. Now remember, UL space LI means any LI that is in a UL will do this, and its list style type is none. So we get rid of the bullets out here. So that's how we did that. Okay, and so we're in an unordered list, and we have two event handlers. We have one for pick one, and that's what happens when we click this, and you've already seen how that works. The second one is if we click these buttons. So if I click the Mars button, and you know it's listening in on rad buttons, which is the whole unordered list, and so if I click anything inside the list, it'll count. I mean, essentially well, right there, it'll count as a click, and we'll go up to the event handler. So what does the event handler do? Well, let's see. This one, flip picks, is pretty much up to here the same thing that you saw previously. There's nothing different in this part. What is different is that we have to set the right radio button. So you notice that right here, when I come down here, I use our buttons. Oh, what's this util name.orbs? You may want to see that. Sorry, we're taking a little sidestep. UTL, we're up to UTL 3 now. You remember how we did this to make get a document.getElement by ID be shorter. We did this to make it easier to get stuff by the tag name. Now I've done another one called utl.name that does the get elements by name, or document.getElements by name function. So we keep adding things to our utility file right here. And you can see that that's what's happening because I'm using UTL name there, and that's the same as this, which expands out to be document.getElements by name, which we saw previously. So using that, I use orbs. Now what is orbs? Well, orbs is the name that is used to tie all of these radio buttons together. All right, so that's the name right here. You see all the orbs in there, name gets orbs, name orbs, name orbs, name orbs. Okay, and so what we do is we come up here and we look for the name orbs, and we get our collection of those things. And notice that this collection, remember, is indexed from 0. It goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And our picks go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in indexes. That's convenient. And so what happens then is in here, I create the collection, and then here I access it, and I use this. If this is 0, then I'm going to go to the 0th button, which will be this one right here, and set checked to true. And that's how we set a button to get a value. So let me go back around to the moon. You notice how that moved with it. That's because when I got to the moon, curpic here became 0, and so this went to our button 0, and this is the 0th button at 0, 1, 2, 3. This is the button at index 0 in this group. And by saying that checked is true for that button, it makes it false for all the rest of these, and all the rest of these obviously don't have the little dot inside. And so that's how it works this way. So now I not only have to do the work to change the pick, but I also have to make sure that I go down here and I get the right radio button set as well, so that the radio buttons track with what I'm doing here on the pictures. Now, the other flip comes when I click one of these. And when I click one of those, here again we have this list called rad buttons, and we're listening on rad buttons for something. And so anytime we click one of these input fields inside, that'll trigger this event out here. And let's see what that does. Well, it's a very small event handler. There's not too much going on. First, I want to make sure that it's an input thing that I clicked. I don't, I click out here somewhere or whatever. I don't want that to trigger anything. So if it's not an input item, then it just ignores it. Otherwise, it changes the pick. So the first thing I do is I parse int evtarget.value. What's that? Well, the target is going to be one of these inputs, and you notice they each have a value. The first one has the value 0, value 1, value 2, value 3. By doing a parse int, I turn the string that has 0 in it to a number 0, and that's the number that I put in current pick. So I make sure current pick is saved so that I'm at Mars. The next thing I should see is Jupiter, and I click it, and that's what I get. If I go to the moon, then I have to have set this to 0, right, which was the same index as this button, so that when I click, it goes next to Mars. And then I also have to change the picture. And since I've already changed this index here and it has the right number, I can just use that as the index to get the picture from this array right up here. And so that's how we can use radio buttons in a case where we want something to happen the minute we click a radio button. This is a good example of how that works.